ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Austin, Texas. He's a comedian. He's a song singer, writer, performer. He's a rickshaw driver. He's a smart guy. He's a town hall interrupter, community center, whatever, interrupter. He's also, I consider to be a good friend, really, to tell you the truth. I met him at the Cause Fest in Tennessee a couple years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Stranger's here.
There he is.
Pasta, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Matt? You met Matt in Chicago.
I did. We did meet you in Chicago. I did meet you in Chicago. Yes, sir.
Very cool. Yeah, man. On the ground, doing good work. I see all your stuff. I love your can we call it? Is it like it's like kind of this performance art kind of character? You do this thing, and it certainly it's not just hilarious, but you're making a impact in a very creative way, and I love that. I love that you're doing that and kind of calling people out in that. It's kind of blurring the line between theater and real life, but it definitely makes the point. So I love it.
No, thank you. I mean, what's crazy is that people in the comment section think I'm 100% serious, and that's horrifying.
Yeah. But that's
you don't know when you're serious and when you're joking around. You just wanted to make sure that everybody could see your autism shirt.
Autism University,
you're like sizing yourself up, Alex. I don't even. You know when they say I'm on the outside looking in, you're on the inside looking out, man. That's the thing.
I didn't. The camera's not. I thought the camera's going to show everything, but I bought the shirt. They've been looking at me since I was like 5 years old. I got a full scholarship, top of my class, but you know.
Yeah, you definitely are on the spectrum, but you got a beautiful brain. You know,
I do have a beautiful. Thank you, Pasta. I think we're all a little bit on the spectrum because we've been poisoned with chemicals and dangerous vaccines that have no business being in our body. Luckily, at least we have a president who's paying lip service to this.
Yeah. Breadcrumbs. We talk about breadcrumbs, right?
Breadcrumbs,
this reminds me of like a lot of Jewish guys from New York always go, "Hey, Jewish people and Italian are the same," and I'd always say, "No, we're not." All right, so don't tell me that I'm on the spectrum with you, pal. You're on the spectrum. No, listen, let's spin this off because I really want to get into this great conversation too as well. I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about. You know, when I first met Alex, I didn't know what to make of him. You know, he would do this clown routine, and you guys.
I dressed up as a clown because.
Good.
We had this is the backstory for it. And the backstory is that we had these like energy blackouts in Austin a couple of winters ago. And, you know, it was like every other place in Texas was fine and got power really quickly. And Austin had like 3 days with like no power, like we were living in the Stone Age, you know? And so I go to the city council meeting. Somebody came up with this idea, like, dude, you should just dress up as a clown and apply to be the CEO of Austin Energy because you'll show like firsthand like how out of whack these priorities are that have absolutely that are just totally disaligned with providing people with like affordable energy that they can actually use. And so that's where it kind of came about.
Yeah,
very cool.
And I met him, and like he was trying to explain the whole kind of concept. I was like, okay, yeah, I kind of get it, whatnot. And we were having some conversations, but then like I started bringing him on my show with different guests and. Just having amazing conversations. And then when I went out to Austin, I immediately called him to go hang out. We went and reviewed some pizza together. He did his stand-up comedy and some of his songs at the same theater that I was in the Minds Fest the next day. You know, he was doing comedy and I was doing debating. But we've been friends ever since, and we try to hook up whenever we can. When we're in Chicago, you got to meet him.
We always try to connect, and it's always a lot of fun. Yeah. When it comes to the town hall stuff, though, and even the protest content, I find that like you can't really. Everybody's so hyper polarized with how they think, and they're so dogmatic, and they're just inundated with like just propaganda everywhere, right? Just everywhere you go on social media, it's propaganda according to what people think your interests are, and you can't really debate or convince anybody that's been radicalized by propaganda. And so I think the best way to snap people out of their matrix is to just imitate them. Just go to City Hall and imitate what that propaganda is so that when people see it on video, maybe they snap out of it and realize how stupid they sound with what they're advocating for.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's very effective. And I think we've seen like it kind of reminds me of the little Borat character where you're making a point by engaging with people in a way that kind of turns it on them. And then you're right. Like they play it back and go, oh, maybe there's something I hadn't really thought of. That it's a way you're kind of forcing people to look in the mirror. I want to play one example because I've seen you do the City Hall appearances. But I found one. I was looking on your Twitter. And I found one that was more recent where you were actually out at a protest. And I think that's interesting because we're talking about protests right now on the homeless. We've been doing protests. We've been kind of analyzing them and seeing where people are. Like you said earlier about people being in their camps. They can't get out of their little tribe. They can't get out of their own head. But this is what you did. I guess this was at a protest earlier this year. And it's interesting what happened here when you were getting questioned by some independent journalists and another woman walks up to try and help you from being sabotaged. So let's take a look because I want our viewers to know that you do this. So this is Alex Strenger in character at a protest. Check it out.
You get that wonderful hat.
I got it at the Women's March back in Washington D.C. because look, man, this is work. Okay, this is a full-time job. I'm not like some armchair quarterback, like some resistance lib that just tweets and platitudes for no reason. No, I'm doing the work, and I'm going to these protests, and I'm making my voice heard, and that's where I got this inclusive hat.
They're just going to cut you and edit you into like.
Yeah, I really, my whole goal out here is to make you look stupid.
Seriously, don't.
I just want to make you look stupid.
Let them isolate them and don't let them win.
We're not going to let the Nazis win, but that's what we got to make our voice heard.
They're going to make fun of you, and
we're just going to make fun of you.
Talk to these guys. Don't talk to these guys.
We're just going to make fun of you.
Talk to the good people.
Yeah.
Just isolate
Yeah, it's
them.
because they don't care
Leave them alone.
about people
Isolate
like you,
them.
dude.
Okay.
That's why.
Isolate
Yeah.
them. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
we're-
this
hey,
to be mean.
we're-
like,
Even though
turn
you're
your back.
We're just trying to
No,
make you
look.
Turn your back and walk away.
No,
Turn your back and walk away. Come on. Turn your back and walk away.
Okay.
Let's walk
Will you
away
hold
from
my
the
hand?
bad
Will you
guys.
hold my hand?
Yes. Come
You
on.
hold my hand?
Come on.
Okay.
We're gonna walk away from the bad
Okay.
guys,
Let's walk away from the
okay?
bad guys.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Can I have a hug?
Of course you can have that.
I remember when people were questioning him with the last one, the Kabbalah one, and they were playing it. And like, no, and Sam Tripoli's like, that's my friend Alex Trent. This is comedy. Sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
No, it's comedy. It's hilarious. But like I say, you're not just calling out the people that get obsessed in their little. My duty is to show up and it's work and all and this emotional kick where there's not really anything else there except this high intense emotion. The other thing you're calling out in there is I did notice that the two indie journalists coming up are definitely coming in a kind of a bad way too. So it kind of exposes that they're not actually willing to say, hey man, what's going on? really have a conversation with you. So that's also tribal what they're doing. So you kind of expose both tribes and get away from the enemy. And so you got these there's enemy, like stay over here on our team. No, not those guys. And they're kind of saying, no, we want to make you look bad. And so the whole thing, you're kind of exposing the whole thing is just this.
Yeah. So
Hey, can I say real quick that Owen Schroyer, shame on you for not even knowing who Alex Strenger was, you sack.
actually,
You know exactly who you are.
I hate to break it to you, Pasta, but Owen knew exactly what was going on.
Okay,
Good.
way to go, Owen. Great job.
Yeah, Owen knew exactly.
Oh, okay. So he was playing up his
Yeah, he was doing his part too. Me and him
I'm trying to
3D
make you
trolled
look
everyone.
bad.
Yeah, we
Okay.
360 trolled everybody. So me and Owen knew that we were going to be at the protest, and I was talking to KView about how Elon Musk fired me from the federal government because I was in charge of putting on a musical in Ireland to help promote the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Elon fired me, and now I'm going to be homeless, and I just went on this whole tirade, And how it was all Donald Trump's fault that we need these musicals because we elected a Nazi to be to be president and whatnot, right? And so Owen comes and talks to me, and I was gonna tell Owen the same exact story before that lady interrupted me, and I was like, oh fuck, what am I gonna do? This lady's blowing my spot up. And so then I'm just like, all right, can you hold my hand? How do I exit? All right, hold my hand. Give me a hug. And then I just went back to trolling all the other protesters afterwards, and there's a whole montage of me just talking about a whole multitude of different things where I was just like, RFK is going to give us rabies. He wants to ban seed oils. Cooking with engine lubricant is healthcare. And people were agreeing with me when I said that to them too. And even with the undocumented migrants, I'm just like, what we really need is a people's revolution to overthrow the United States government. And You know, it's not like these white people are going to do anything. They're too caught up in their privilege, even the white allies. But like the undocumented migrants escaping colonialism in Peru, Venezuela, Guatemala, you know, they will happily participate in the people's revolution to overthrow the capitalist hellscape that we're living in. And people were like, yeah, the people that I talked to were like fully agreed with me, like with not even questioning what I'm saying. Like, yeah, I'm for open borders. That sounds great. And I'm just like, oh, wow.
Well,
Yeah.
you do like to troll the other side too, as well. That's what I like about you. Your Donald Trump song was really kind of about making fun of Donald Trump, and people were like, "Yeah, about it." They were like all psyched about it, and you're like, "Dude, I'm kind of making fun of Donald Trump here," and you're like going along with it. Have you been at any of the new protests recently? Because I think we need to talk about that. Because at the end of the day, a lot of those people at the protest, the ones that were actually protesting for Gaza and anti-war protest, I agree with them on that, even if they were wearing their mask outside the way you had your mask on outside. And those same people that were marching in the streets for that, you know, I disagreed with them when it came to, obviously, COVID. I disagree with a lot of them, the way they look at elections, thinking that it was fair. I disagree with them on certain issues. But at the end of the day, I think they're on the right side of history. And it's kind of interesting because the No Kings protest was kind of co-opted and the message was moved away. But the initial movement from the streets, the ones that Matt went to in LA, I think they're on the right side of history when it comes to what they are actually protesting.
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously protesting against going to war is never a bad thing to protest, right?
Yeah.
You should always advocate to avoid going to war by pretty much any means necessary. I don't think that, at least the past couple of weeks in LA, where you're throwing cinder blocks at police cars from an overpass and lighting things on fire.
I like the way you went to that right away, by the way.
No,
like,
but
not
that's
antagonized by the other side either. Like rubber bullets aren't being shot at a journalist, and using stuff that they're using in Fallujah. Like I like the way you went for that right away. Go ahead.
Well, because it's the most obvious thing that everybody sees, and you should go for what the most obvious thing that everybody sees is to talk about it right away. Not only that, but to your point, how do you know that the cop who's shooting rubber bullets at the journalist isn't working with these globalists to inflame the situation to create more civil unrest?
There are a lot of feds. I think that's secondary right now to what the actual principle of the protests were about, and that was the fact that Donald Trump, a Republican president, sent in feds, extra feds, ICE agents into a blue state where the governor didn't even ask. And I don't like Gavin Newsom one bit. But I agree 100% with them. Living in that community, the majority of the community, we love our immigrant community. We don't want ICE there. What happened to states' rights? What happened to Republicans going, it's a state rights issue? The governor didn't even ask for it. Donald Trump did that to antagonize the situation. And I, for one, would get in the streets and stand up for my immigrant community. I don't want ICE there. Get them the hell out.
Okay. But then what do you do about the fact that 10 to 20 million people came here across the border totally unvetted when a geriatric with dementia signed with an auto pen that he didn't know what he was signing? And then when 20 million people come to this country over 4 years, you don't know who they are. The majority of them look like they're middle-aged men from the videos. What do you do in that situation? Because there is a balance.
You let the states handle it. If you want to, the governor wants to have ICE come in and ask the president to do so, do so. Not everybody shares your views on immigration.
Yeah,
a lot of us are descendants of immigrants.
My mom is an immigrant. No, my mom is an immigrant.
I know. I'm answering your question. Let me answer your question. You let that state deal with it. The state, if you're a Republican, you're all supposed to be about states' rights.
Sure,
right?
But there's no way, okay, but if there's no interest, right? Like, obviously, you can't just overly supersede and just militarize the police and do all that stuff. Like, I'm not advocating for that. But if you're dealing with a state, if you're dealing with a city that just doesn't want to cooperate in any capacity at all, what do you do? There has to be a middle ground.
Cooperate with what?
If 10 million people came here illegally and you're creating a
state, the governor has to ask for the feds to come in. You let since when do Republicans not want to deal with state rights? Right? If a red state wants to outlaw abortion, is a blue state, a president allowed to go in there and flip that stuff over?
But you're not having protests that could potentially turn violent, and if the local governments don't have control, can't get control over a protest, you do have the ability to bring in other people to help control a protest so it doesn't turn into a riot.
Responsibility, man. It's not since when do Republicans now in the right don't? And here's the thing: you're super hyper inflating the xenophobic talking points, right? You really are.
What do you mean? No, it's just
because you're like, what if this can happen? Like it's an emergency. It's not an emergency. Half the country doesn't share the same view that immigration is the problem. They look at immigration as a strength, and that's a blue governor in a blue state where the citizens of that state are cool with the immigration that's coming in.
Okay. And you know what? When I went to the protest in San Antonio, all the people in San Antonio were mostly from immigrant families, and they were all really cool and they were really nice. And they weren't doing any of the stuff that I saw in LA. So not everything is the same, and not everything is in the monolith. I reject the notion of labeling every single protester a violent insurrectionist or a thug or somebody like that. I don't think that that's appropriate either on the right. But there has to be a discussion about addressing, like, I mean, obviously immigration is just one issue, but like there should be a fair discussion about how do you address 10 million people that came here. How do you address over 4 years?
We can address that right now, but we got to keep it separate from the protest conversation because the protest is a separate.
No, but that's what they're protesting for, right? And so if I were to go to a protester, if I were to go up, right, and have a serious discussion with these protesters and say, okay, like, how would you, like, what is your solution to address immigration? And if the solution is just keep it wide open and not do anything, like, that's not feasible. I do think that we should be prioritizing about how we do immigration, right? Like, I don't think that you should be arresting people when they're going to court. I think that's kind of fucked up. It makes it weakens the whole narrative. It makes us look like
or at fifth grade graduations, or at restaurants, or it's places that they just show up where they know the uncles and the aunts are going to be there and terrorize it. And you know what I'm saying? Once again, there's a lot of us who don't look at immigration as an issue. We look at it as a strength. And if you really want to address the immigration issue, you would address the reason why they're coming in the first place, Alex, which is something that nobody on the populist right wants to do.
We talked about this already.
Foreign policy. I'm not saying you. I'm saying nobody in the mainstream media, nobody in the government, the people who the decision makers, they're not talking about our foreign policy. They're not addressing the fact that we have United States military bases in Guatemala, in Honduras, in El Salvador, right? You know what I'm saying? That we're stealing the resources and sending them here anyways, right?
Okay.
But the core issue that I'm trying to get across to you, Alex, is that a lot of us don't look at immigration as an issue, as a problem. We look at it as a strength. We know that that immigrants are charged for crimes at a far less rate than American citizens. We understand that the majority of these people that are coming who live in these areas, that they are workers, the kindest people, the most loving people.
99% of people who come here into this country are good, hardworking people who share American values. Let's say that's true. But what's 1% of 10 to 20 million? 100 to 200,000? Like, are you okay? Like, are you okay with 100 to 200,000 potentially violent criminals and drug traffickers and whatnot coming into America? And you have to look at it from like a gross number standpoint. Nobody in their right mind with half a brain is okay with that high of a number of people coming in. And that's why, you know, like, you have to vet. You have to just be a little bit smarter about how we let people into America. Because if you let 10 million people in at once, you just create this huge. You just create this huge
at once. That's the once again false narrative. They've been coming at a certain flow for years. They've never stopped, and they're coming to work.
10 million people in 4 years.
You're looking at the percentage of immigrants that are coming in is committing crimes compared to the percentage of Americans committing crimes. You got a far greater number over here, Alex. You might want to address that first.
Okay, where are the crimes taking place in these ultra blue cities with George Soros funded DAs that aren't prosecuting violent crime anyway? I mean, it's all really a symptom of the fact that governments are running out of money and that people who are wealthy are fleeing high tax areas because it's going to pay off the debt. And then when you have no jobs and no revenue and no income coming in and massive income inequality in these big cities, you get more crime also as a result of that. So a lot of the stuff too is very localized. Like where I live an hour outside Austin. A lot of these problems don't really apply to me. They only apply to me because I'm on the internet paying attention to what's happening, right? Okay. Or they apply because I'm in Austin seeing what's going down. And you know what? You're right. Like a lot of people came here to escape a lot of the bad foreign policy practices that we've implemented over the years. I never advocated for that. I wasn't even born when a lot of that shit was.
But you're living behind the gun of the government that does do that. I know, but I never advocated for that. You advocated for Donald Trump. You advocated for these policies. You've advocated for what's going on right now. People to take their hands off about it, and then you're going to chastise the people out there who are supporting the immigrants coming in.
Well, do you think anything would be different? Do you think anything would be different though if Kamala won?
No, I don't. But that's the point I'm trying to make, that it was meant to be that way. You're still playing the lesser of two evil games.
I mean, it is lesser.
Neither one of them is going to be worse or better than the other because it's just a handoff.
You think it's going to be the same? You think it's the
same team, same donors, same people, Alex? That's what I'm trying to say.
I think I'm actually, I don't disagree with you. I think like one good thing about Trump getting elected again is it actually kind of took that mask off. I think more people are seeing that. I think that, which is actually a good thing. I think that, like, and I said this to Shank when I went on Young Turks, that you're going to see after 4 years that he's not a dictator, he's not a savior, he's just like any other president, caught up in a bureaucratic mess, trying to fix things that nobody has any ability to fix because of how entrenched our bureaucracy and our system is, and everything that Trump would try to do, or Biden would try to do, or Kamala would try to do, or AOC in the future would try to do, or anybody in the future would try to do. It's like trying to patch holes up in the Titanic as it's sinking. There's almost nothing that you can even do in a situation like that to address what we're concerned about.
Yeah, I think we all here agree on that overall issue that any administration that's in charge is going to have the similar problems, and we're going to be right where we are anyways every election cycle. I think we get that. Let's go back to the protesters themselves. We're here in LA. We were able to be, I was on the ground to cover this entire thing. And I think that what's important, and we have to draw analogies sometimes. And the first thing that came to mind when I saw all of there was a massive psyop going on here. There were infiltrators. There were these, they were definitely people being set up to start the ruckus, the first weekend. Absolutely. And what came to mind to me was January 6th. And I said to myself, how cool would it be if people on the right could understand how what they went through with 200 plus feds put into that movement, that was people having the right to protest. By the way, you have a right to protest. You have a right to speak your mind. In this country, that's our First Amendment. So to these provocateurs, these people, these actual feds put in, like you had Ray Epps saying, we're going into the Capitol. We're going into the Capitol.
Nick Fuentes did the same thing, and people put him on, people platform him left and right, like he's like the hot new item. It's the same thing. Ali Alexander, all these people, yeah.
I was trying to speak at that rally, by the way.
So I'm bringing this up because we all understand that. We looked at it. We saw how they tricked the public. They only showed you the shots of the windows being broken, which are being broken by feds, while the other side of the building, they were going in and taking selfies with cops and doing prayer circles. So we saw that. And so I reminded you at the beginning of this conversation, you said, let's go with the thing that we see. Because that's the first thing you saw was the people throwing the stuff at the cops. You saw on the 101 freeway, that whole thing. I was there in person. I saw what happened. I'm sure on your list is the Waymo cars lined up and torched.
Yeah, and then the foreign waving foreign flags, not speaking English while that was happening. Like, okay,
all of this was the equivalent. Think of Roy Epps on this. It's the same thing. So this is just so the difference of Kamala or Trump in office right now is that you would just find another way to make the base look foolish during their protests and look like, well, worse than foolish, look like either domestic terrorists, as J6, they did that very successful to them, take away due process, or in this case, you make them look like outside terrorists who came into our country and then you get the xenophobia and the whole, we got to get them out of here situation. But the point is, you take a movement that means something to somebody, which is either election integrity or immigration, and you use it against them. So this is a real thing, like Craig said, a real thing in LA. The Latino population is the majority population here. So people were affected by these ICE raids. My assessment after actually being on the ground and seeing this transpire in my face, I'm telling you, it was never about immigration. The whole point was to create the chaos. That was the point. That's why Trump put the ICE raids in full force, all in the same period. It all happened in the same 48 hours. All of a sudden, up until that first Friday, he was doing the same average of deportations he was doing the whole time and his previous term. which was 600 a day. What people don't know, and they need to understand this, his 600 a day deportation average is half of what Obama's average was, which was
deporter in chief.
1,200 a day.
Yeah.
1,200 a day for Obama. So again, this weekend that led up the first weekend of the protest, specifically in here in LA, to make Gavin Newsom lose control and Trump come in with the National Guard. That was always the plan. It wasn't a response. It wasn't, these people are out of control, we got to bring the National Guard in.
I'm going to create the problem, Matt.
It was always the plan.
I'm going to give you the solution.
And this is okay. And then, so what is it all leading to? So why would they do that, right? So now everybody's more pissed, more upset, more angry. We haven't solved immigration.
Palantir has their AI database, and
there you go.
Yeah. I know about the Palantir database. It's not good.
And you know, Laura Loomer was the first. Laura Loomer was the first to tweet out, "Let's teach those sons of bitches in LA a lesson."
Do you think Laura Loomer, though, is like a credible narrative that people actually listen to, or do you think she's kind of just a caricature now?
The team sports narrative still is in high effect, and they follow her because who she is, a hardcore Zionist Trump supporter.
She's just got 800,000 followers, so people just want their engagement, and everything that you see on X right now is a giant business. Yeah. And so it's all a business model, but I don't think very many people take Laura Loomer seriously. And if you look at X, there's so many people on the right that have just turned on Trump anyway because of what's happening in Iran as well. So, it seems as though, the populist right is actually a little bit more free thinking than the left is in terms of the infighting and the disagreements with each other.
The populist left got shut down and shut out, and guys like me and Matt are here. You know what I'm saying? We felt this way. The thing is that we didn't make as many excuses for the Democratic Party as the excuses they're making for Donald Trump. And by the way, really quickly, Laura Loomer told me at the American Project in Orlando, "Man, I can't believe you're a leftist who talks about the World Economic Forum than we did. I've never seen that stuff before." So I thought she was one of those people on the populist right that was like, okay, so we understand about data mining and them putting us on the grid. The Catherine Austin Fitts warning. Don't do it. They're going to use the COVID to get the Democrats establishment-friendly followers on a QR code with COVID, and they're going to use, oh my God, immigration at the border for real IDs for people on the right to get them on the grid. And here comes Laura Loomer in supporting that. But while we're on this whole situation right now and talking about it, I think it's a good time. And Matt, please stop me if I'm being rude over here and just taking over the show. But I think he said something there that is really something that we want to talk about, Alex, with and stuff, because Alex, I appreciate you coming on right now. All the odds are against you. Right now, like I said on your chat, I think that the craziest, wokest ideology push right now is not even worth paying attention to compared to the fact that Donald Trump has done what no president's done, right? Allowing and supporting attack on Iran, serious World War III implications. You said there's a lot of people on the populist right who are more holding the line and more about principle. How do you feel? And what do you feel is going on right now? Is there a MAGA civil war in your mind, or are people just going to walk? Where do they walk to?
Well, I don't know. I think it's a complicated question because I honestly, my opinion, I don't think that we're going to get World War III in this go around. I think this is just going to.
You think this is bad, right? You do realize that attacking Iran, bad. I mean,
I don't think we should send. I don't. Yes, I don't think that we should have American soldiers on the ground in Iran. Okay, I think it's a terrible idea. I think anybody who advocates for boots on the ground in Iran should have to enlist immediately and start fighting themselves. I don't think that's good.
Should we fund it? Should we pay for it?
I literally said I don't think we should do it. So that's neither here nor there. I don't want it. I don't think it's a good idea. Okay, I'm not in support of us going to war in Iran in any capacity. But I also think that the Ayatollah in Iran, because I'm looking at his Twitter page, and I look at the Iran military page on X. I'm about to pull it up in a minute. And if you listen to what these people are saying openly, the people that are in charge of that government also happen to be batshit insane.
How many times have they attacked us? I'll wait. Go ahead.
No, they've never attacked us. I'm
Okay.
not saying that they've never attacked us. But when the Ayatollah is saying the Iranian nation resists any imposed peace, The Iranian nation will not submit to anyone in the face of coercion. Okay.
Donald Trump told people in Tehran to leave the city, for crying out loud.
I know, but it's Ayatollah. Like, in order to get peace, in order to get a deal, you need somebody that's going to be cooperative to try to find you. Like, peace is still a two-way street, you know?
Yeah,
the Zionist enemy. Wait. The Zionist. Hold on. We're reading. Let's just read the Ayatollah's Twitter page.
We get your point, though. I understand your
The
point.
Zionist
That's to
enemy
America. That's to America. It's crazy.
Okay. I don't think that everybody in Iran is chanting death to America. Okay. But I do think that there's a problem with that leadership. And if the Iranian government winds up getting a little bit of a makeover and has a more Western-friendly leadership in charge of Iran, how does that hurt us as Americans either?
Well, first of all, the procedure on trying to dictate what their government should look like is the problem in itself. It's a very kind of hypocritical question. I mean, how could it not lead to more negative stuff when we as Americans in the West are trying to impose their government? Guess what, Alex? It's already happened before. It's called Mossadegh.
Operation Ajax. Yeah, I know about Operation Ajax. Like I understand.
Right? And all right, so you answered your own question. What are the results of that? If we really want to achieve peace, we allow them to have their own what's called national sovereignty. They pick their leaders, they pick their government, which, by the way, the Ayatollah wouldn't even be in charge if it wasn't for us getting involved and pushing the Shah on them.
I know that. I understand that.
But the Ayatollah. Well, let me just answer this question real quick. The first thing to do is not do what's already failed. Go ahead.
Okay, but our involvement is pretty minimal. And how do you know? Just hypothetically, like we've been staging color revolutions for decades, right? Like you agree with me, right? We've been staging color revolutions in a bunch of foreign countries forever. We did this primarily before the digital age took place. And we handed out leaflets, we handed out flyers, we gave money to different insurgencies, different activists to kind of create instability in whatever country that's going on. Do you not think that, like, with the landscape that's going on X right now, where everyone's either a neocon or a neo-Nazi and there's no middle ground, you don't think that there's like a small possibility that maybe one of these foreign countries that we've done this stuff to in the past is kind of turning the tables and doing that to us?
Are you saying we're being played from the inside? Is this the China theory?
He's saying because you're saying because of American imperialism, because of our aggression, that there's going to be a price to pay from the thing that we were trying to fabricate in the beginning. You're saying that they will eventually actually want to bring harm to us. You know what? I personally think that a lot of these countries that we've been made to be afraid of are more advanced. Their civilians are more advanced as far as their awareness of how to separate the fact that we've been propagandized. They're not actually mad at us. They're furious at American imperialism. They're furious at our leaders, but getting revenge on the American people, I don't think is the thing that they're looking at. They're looking at ways to stop the people that lead us. That would be the thing. So I don't.
Sure. Yeah. I agree. I think that people that are leading us, it's a problem. I also think just even in Israel, if Israel were to have new elections today, I don't think Netanyahu or the Likud party would be in power either.
That's true. That's true.
So
the other parties are a little crazy too as well. And right now that's a whole different argument, what's going on in their society. I think, a lot of people need to understand and learn what's going on in Iran and understand their society and understand their people. I like to point to Anthony Bourdain, who puts a lot of memes that are coming out. He said I didn't think they would be the nicest people in the world that I've ever encountered, and that was in Iran. And Iran has a lot of old culture, a lot of westernization too as well. I think we should be seeking peace with Iran. What we just did with Iran was crazy, and it has the fingerprints of the Americans all over it. As Israel goes, so does the United States. Israel can't do anything without the United States as far as weaponry, bombing, intel. So when they pull the peace talks and all of a sudden they bomb 60 people, right, to kill 2 people, 20 of them were children, by the way, that they killed. I mean,
okay, but then Iran is literally bombing, like is dropping bombs in the middle of Tel Aviv too, right? So it's like I've noticed. I saw the video where not Iran. I think
they're doing targeted attacks in Tel Aviv, absolutely, and so we see this the mainstream spin. We just covered this earlier on our Top Censor News, where they're telling us that this hospital was targeted by Iran when it wasn't. It felt the aftershock of the Central Intelligence base of Israel that they did bomb, which was nearby. That was so the idea that we spin this notion that there's civilians being targeted. The only country we've seen targeting civilians on purpose is Israel. So yes, Tel Aviv's being bombed right now. Absolutely. This is called retaliation. This is called this is what you do when you get provoked. I
think we gotta agree. I think look, here's my
you think Iran is targeting civilians right now?
I think that you're dealing with two governments that are run by complete and total psychopaths. And if you want peace, you could recognize Israel's right to exist as a sovereign state. You could recognize the Iranian people's right to exist. And you could also recognize that both governments are hijacking the needs of their people. And both regions probably need new governments so you can actually get peace. Because with the way both governments are right now, I don't think peace will ever happen.
No, because one of those governments are designed to not have peace. They're not looking for a two-state solution with Palestine. They're not looking to maintain the area they have. They want the Greater Israel Project has always been the point.
Greater Israel Project, I've researched this stuff, but there's not if that does come to fruition, there's not even enough Jews in the world to even occupy that whole area of the Greater Israel Project. So what would the point be of that?
You're saying that because there's not enough to occupy, then the Greater Israel Project isn't legit and substantial.
No, but I just don't understand I just don't understand what the Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not here to debate or argue. I just want to learn. I just want to figure.
Well, it all could.
Well, if there's just not enough Jewish people in the world to even inhabit that land, the purpose of the Greater Israel Project is to on paper expand a homeland, for Jews in the Middle East or what have you. What would the purpose be?
Land is land.
I know, why would so then you're controlling land that's going to be inhabited by people who are going to be even more angry at you and more furious at you for taking their land, and then the security of Israel becomes even more at risk than what it was in the past. It just doesn't seem like a good idea.
It doesn't seem like a good idea.
I think we are entering to a different. We're spinning off into another whole.
I don't think that doesn't sound like logically when you put the puzzle pieces together.
They're expanding their territory. They're grabbing more territory. They've moved closer to the capital of Syria than they ever have before. They have complete control of the Golan Heights. You know what I'm saying? They're still bombing Lebanon and pushing them back. Now they're starting to bomb Iran. We can argue the merits of what they're trying to do, why they're doing it, whatever the case may be. I think we should be arguing whether it's right or wrong in America's interest. And understanding completely that Israel can't do it without America's help. Do you think that the people on the Trump side that you were talking about, what do you think about where they're at right now? Do you think they're going to split? I mean, where you said you started off the discussion by saying that you don't think this is going to spin out into World War III. Be more talks. We're going to settle down, stuff like that. Where's the Trump base? I mean, do you think a lot of them are like Dave Smith right now? I was wrong to do it. He should impeach. We're out. What do you think they're going to just stand by and eventually get back on that bandwagon?
I think that it's early to say, and I think people like to say a lot of things online because this, like I said earlier, this whole thing is a business. And you might say one thing about Donald Trump, and then 5 months later, once this situation calms down and Trump does something that you like, you just pivot to something else because people have the attention span of goldfish. I think that's kind of the mood issue. I think that a lot of the stuff that people get angry about within a small time frame usually fades into the background and people just forget about it. I think this is just what I've learned, especially being connected with everything these past few years, is that when people get outraged, they don't really stay outraged for very long. They always have to find a new thing to be upset and angry about. So I don't know, right? That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I think that there'd be certain market. I think if you're going to get World War III, I think you'd have certain market structures that would be indicative of that happening. The price of oil would potentially start skyrocketing. The price of gold would start skyrocketing. The DXY would also start skyrocketing. I don't see that really. None of the economic models seem to indicate that you're going to get something like that right now. It just seems like it's more of a fear-based narrative to just get asset prices to potentially go higher later on, in the near future. So I just don't. I think that a lot of the stuff that we're worried about is just not going to come to fruition. I'm just not I just got a spidey sense about it. Not you're gonna invite me back next year when there's another World War III narrative, and we're gonna have the same conversation again because What's happening now is just not going to. It's just gonna continue. This is just gonna be another point of tension that's gonna just be manifested to just add some more tension and more tension and more tension until something bubbles up in some capacity. Like if you're gonna go to war with Iran, I don't think the American people would consent to going to war with Iran. I think that if you start surveying regular Americans, none of them would be interested in doing it. You'd have to have an event that would happen. So unless God forbid, you'd have to have an event. So what do you think the event would be that would get us to want to do something like that?
Certainly an attack that we stage on ourselves that would easily do it. You can do that. We have definite some theories that we've had some people come on the show tell us. We had Dr. David Martin come on, tell us about a simulation they have planned for July 4th, which is a bioterrorist attack.
Where's the doc? Can you send put that in the private chat and send me the documents? That's so I can
actually. Yeah, no, we've actually shared that conversation online on Twitter. I've done my part. We got it. The homeless stuff. We got this out to 500,000 people saw this and it's downloadable. Anybody can see. It's a PDF. It's the bioterrorism manual. It's a simulation that happened in April of 2024, where they depict an event on July 4th of this year, which is coming right up. And that event will then be, it's kind of like the greatest hits of 9/11 and COVID all together, because it's a bioterrorist attack. You blame it on a foreign entity. You take out your own people, of course. You have to do that to get people mobilized on their feet, out of fear, out of hate, and more than anything, to create that state of vengeance, right? You want to get revenge. This is the 9/11, right? You start getting the Bin Laden with the bullseye. You print that out everywhere, like minutes after, which they did, by the way. 9/11, they had already decided.
You want to know something funny? There's a guy called Ray Dalio, and he wrote a book called like The Changing World Order. And there's different phases. I think that's what the title is. But there's different phases of like a nation's like ascent to prosperity and just collapse, right? And right now, like there's like the building stage 1 and 2. There's a prosperity stage. We're looking at America, right? And the prosperity stage, say like post World War II to about the 1960s. And then the excess stage is from like the 1960s till about the dot-com bubble. No, till about the housing crisis, I'd say, is the excess stage, where we're just excessively spending a bunch of money and inequality is going through the roof. We're buying a bunch of things on leverage, taking out debt to buy things we can't afford, everything is just being super high on the hog, high and mighty, thinking that everything that we're told to do, we just blindly follow it, and we're ready to just like, and you're promised this big American dream. You take out a bunch of debt because this is what you're told to do, and you're going to eventually, get ultra wealthy as a result of whatever happens. And then when the promises wind up breaking, and you see it through the housing crisis, and this is where it started, then you start to get the collapse, and the collapse can take like 20, 30 years, right? And so during the collapse, you start seeing people become disenchanted with America. People start working harder and harder for like a shittier standard of living. You see people kind of you see civil unrest start manifesting. People start arguing with each other over, like, finding things to argue with each other over about online. And it becomes kind of monetized. So there's more of an incentive to do it. And then you start seeing these protests like you start seeing happening right now. And are these protests going to turn into a civil war right now? No. But, when the government runs out of money and we have to hyperinflate our currency potentially, and if we get to that point, then you do get something like that. So right now we are in stage 5 of Ray Dalio's book. And so I'm not as concerned about all this stuff now, because we're just not in because we're just still in stage 5. And once we get to stage 6, it happens. But I think we're just still in stage 5 right now.
So I sent you the national blueprint for biodefense. One of our viewers put it in the chat as well. But this is for anybody. Just look this up. It's a 178 page document. It depicts this. They call it a simulation. But we saw this again, and I talk about 9/11, about COVID, because we have very similar incidences happening also 1 year before the incident. So with 9/11, we had the Project of a New American Century meeting, which happened in August of 2020, 1 year and 1 month before the event, where we had all of the Halliburton people there. You had your Pentagon people, you had your Rumsfeld and Wolfowitz, Cheney's, the Bushes, all of them. And then go to COVID, you had this also a simulation called Event 201, which also happened a year before COVID.
Well, it happened like 3 months before COVID.
Oh, it was 3 months. So 3 months before. And again, it's like if you told people about it before COVID, they would tell you the same thing that they're telling us now. They're going to tell Dr. David Martin and all of us that are sharing this now before July 4th. They'll tell us, oh, it's just a simulation. We have to be prepared. We don't know, because July 4th would be a good time to strike us when our hearts are out on our sleeve, right? That's the point. It's, oh, they got us good, right? When we're celebrating our country's birthday. So no, we have to be prepared. That's why we did the simulation. Same with Project of a New American Century. I mean, and people who haven't heard of that one, I mean, this is insane. In 2000, you had a manual on the cover. This one, they don't give us the cover. But on that one, there was a cover page. And on the cover page was literally the Twin Towers with bullseyes on both of them. How unbelievable did you put that on the cover of your manual for your simulation of what would happen if somebody, Saudi Arabia, decided to attack us and hit us where it hurts at the Twin Towers. So here we are. We're sharing this out. There are other people that have shared stuff with us. There's other stuff out there that's saying that there's absolutely a false flag event being planned. So I think that Alex, on one hand, I do appreciate your calmness throughout this, because we need to find it. We get hyped up. We get ourselves kind of emotionally charged because we're talking about such nefarious stuff here, and it really gets our blood boiling. You bring a calm. I appreciate that. However, you are saying at the same time, if there is a false flag, if there's something that comes into play, we will have to respond to it. So like please look at this and understand that like that will get the thing you're saying. We will get manufactured consent. That will happen.
Absolutely. So read the documentation. I think people are less psyopable than they've ever been as a result of what happened. I think that it's going to be a little bit harder because the right is so divided to find people to willingly go to war in Iran or whatever the situation is. So I just think that like, yeah, it's there and you should look at it, but I'm just not as like, I just think that we're moving in a better direction. I think we are actually moving in a better, more conscious direction than we were in the past. Is what I'm saying. You know? Yeah.
Well, one thing's for sure. We could say that we go through this over and over. Same old Netanyahu coming to Congress, telling us to go invade a country. Same old talking points, same old red versus blue, same old rallies. Okay. However, I think because of social media, because we're able to communicate, because we're able to do shows like this didn't happen. We weren't able to do this in the 90s when they were tricking us. In the first Gulf War. We weren't able to do this.
There's so much more media, and there's so much more stuff out there. And honestly, dude, people are not even as neocon as they were back in 25 years ago, right? Like
that's true.
Like, okay, look, even I'm looking at the headline on your thing where you're like Tucker Carlson rips apart and warmonger Ted Cruz, right?
We wanted to play that with you and talk to you about that.
Yeah, I saw the episode. Like, I think generally when it comes to these debates, the person who's the most calm and level-headed is the one that seems to be, it seems to be the one that you want to like. It seems to be the one that I gravitate towards. Whoever just sounds calm and level-headed.
Like what I did to Destiny in Texas, right?
Yeah.
But I did to the Ford. I had 4 neocons. Well, I don't say they're neocons. Libby Edmonds, Lauren Chen, Joe Allen. I can't remember the other person. I had 4 when is America becoming a communist country, and I had to hold my own.
You had to hold your own, yeah. Just like I got to sort of hold my own on this, even though we're all buddies. But
you did as best you could for the circumstances. Absolutely, man. That's why we love you. But,
look,
you're still walking out losing every single round.
Well, I'm not thinking of this as like a fight or an argument.
I know, dude. I'm fucking with you because I love you.
Yeah. It's a shirt. Don't worry about it. No, what the fuck was I talking about? Well, I was trying to say something. Okay, so like Ted Cruz, right? Like Ted Cruz would not have been considered. The fact that we considered someone like Ted Cruz to be a neocon right now means that the bar has shifted tremendously about what neoconservatism is, right? Because like 20 years ago, the Republican Party was dominated by neocons, like people like Nikki Haley, Lindsey Graham, George Bush, Dick Cheney. They were the face of the Republican Party, right? Like, and now, and Ted Cruz, when he came in like 2012, was considered, he wasn't like on Rand Paul's level or Ron Paul's level, but he was way less of a neocon than those people. And now, like, that's who we consider. So if Ted Cruz is the guy that we consider to be a neocon, that's kind of like a
Can I
big
push
win
back
for us,
on that
you know?
theory though for a second?
Yeah.
Can I push back? Because here's the thing: the public has less knowledge of foreign policy. That's the big problem right now. Every single Democrat is going along with this Russia-Ukraine war. I mean, so even the Democratic Party is now kind of shifted in some other ways. It's just not on the dinner table. It's not on the menu anymore. And a lot of people get caught up with what's going on over here, and they're so distracted. And we have no integrity whatsoever in the mainstream media. It's terrible. Not to mention that in Twitter, it's a controlled space. Your friend Nick Sorter gets all these headlines just for being MAGA media, and he says that the dumbest shit, and he gets fucking lifted by Elon and his goons. While
Why can't I get lifted by Elon and his goons? Me and Nick are buddies. Why can't I get lifted?
Here's the thing: because you're not as tribal as Nick. That's why. Because you can come on here and you can agree with us on certain things. Nick would never do that, right? You know what I'm saying? Even though you have an autism shirt on and you're on the spectrum, you have the ability to think for yourself, and you promote that at times, right? You promote independent thinking. Nick does not. Benny Johnson does not. Even Tim Pool doesn't. It's tribal thinking. That's why. Anybody who plays into the tribal thinking, they get elevated. This Myron Gaines guy right now and his crew, oh my God, who's still playing the red team, blue team thing, they get elevated. But anybody who has any independent thought,
I'm glad you brought up Myron Gaines, but you understand that like people like Myron Gaines, like when you talk about like this whole narrative, like people like Myron Gaines or Nick Fuentes literally have probably created more hardcore Zionists than anything the Israeli government could have ever done.
Well, it's bullshit.
You know, like Stu Peters, Nick Fuentes, Myron Gaines, Lucas Gage, seeing those people, right? Like me being Jewish, seeing that type of shit pop up all over my algorithm.
Yeah.
Like, you don't think that's gonna make me like if I didn't really have
because
like
they're getting promoted by design because they can't all those people you mentioned can't distinguish or at least have the control or I don't know what the word I'm looking for, the responsibility of differentiating a Zionist from a Jew. They can't. But even Zionism is like, but they always do it. They say Jews, 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 and it's not. And I've had fights with Mike Rechtenwald online. I'm like, can you please say Zionist? There are more Christian Zionists than Jewish Zionists in America. Yep. Zionism is completely different than Judaism, and we learn that a lot when we speak to the rabbis in the streets of Chicago and whatnot. Well,
yeah, but Zionism has multiple components too, right? Like the labor. I'm sure that if you talk to a labor Zionist living near the Gaza border, that would have gone to the Nova Music Festival pre-October 7th, they'd probably be agreeing with 90% of what you're saying anyway. They probably wouldn't even be disagreeing with you all that much about different things, right? So like, there's different degrees of Zionism too. Like just because like I don't like the idea that the idea of Zionism, which the idea of a Jewish home in Israel, is being co-opted by neocon psychopaths. Like, you think that makes me happy? Like, no, I can't stand it. So the idea of Zionism is it's a very broad term. Yeah. There's different.
But the thing is that all those people you mentioned, Stu Peters, Lucas Gage, what's his name, Dan Bilzerian. I mean, these guys have gone so far overboard, right? Like, this is a discussion I had with Leonardo Gianni, who I met.
Oh, yeah, her too. It's like you look at that shit, and I'm just like,
let's just piss on the Jews for everything. Where, listen, I have a very interesting perspective. I'm here in Highland Beach. I went to school in Boca Raton. A lot of my mentors were Zionists. I went out with girls whose fathers were hardcore Zionists and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
They were some of the most greatest people I've ever had in my life. They had such an impact on my life. I remember my friend Sean Garnett, who's a little bit mad at me. He got mad at me when I first went on Jimmy and I was pushing back against the Zionists, right? I remember his father told me, hey, Pasta, right? You have not made it in life when you say you've made it in life. You've made it in life when other people say you've made it in life. In other words, stop bragging about yourself. And it was really humbling by what he told me. And there's many other situations I've had with Zionists growing up where they're just amazing people, right, to me. But I strongly disagree on their narrative on the state of Israel, right? So, I mean, people need to distinguish between the two. And I know I've had that unique lifestyle of growing up in a Jewish community. I'm in Boca Raton, for crying out loud.
No, but the narrative is what? That Israel should exist? Because that's not a bad narrative. The narrative that Israel should exist, we all agree that Israel, I don't think anybody's going to have an...
Whatever the case may be, They got to stop doing what these other people. Dan Blazarian and Leonardo Gianni, who I just met we saw again at the Third Eye Carnival. I met her in Austin when I was doing the Minds Festival. We had the discussion. I told them, like, you guys are going batshit crazy overboard where you're trying to talk about the Bolshevik Revolution as a revolution of Jews killing Christians. Like, you're just fucking nuts. And, you know, they don't know their facts. They twist the narratives. That has nothing to do with anything. That's how far they've gone on this whole craziness of
they also don't care because it's a business model for them, you know?
Yeah,
like, I think, they also don't care because it's just a business model and it gets
They're hurting the movement. They're hurting the movement, and it's a shame because there's a lot of people that I know, social justice warriors, a lot of people who do the work, the solidarity work in Latin America, that are Jewish and don't like what the state of Israel is doing. And they've led the way, and I think there should be something said about that, because I hate on the menu for any ethnic group or any religious group is a no-go. It's none. Because I don't believe that the people like Netanyahu are Jewish, right? I believe that Netanyahu is more satanic than he's a Jew. And there's a lot of Jews out there, hardcore practicing Jews, that would disavow Netanyahu in a heartbeat. So I think they should differentiate.
Well, like I said,
they're hurting the movement, not helping it.
Yeah, if they had elections in Israel today, I don't think Netanyahu or the Likud party would win, right? And I actually want to go to Israel. I've been talking with somebody about it. The idea of trying to make a documentary out there and just go to Israel and ask people in Israel how they feel about the situation. Because right now it's like, here's what's kind of annoying, right? And it's that we're all sitting around X, living in America, armchair quarterbacking the situation in the Middle East, when none of us are even there to see what's really happening on the ground. And it's like, how is it that different than talking about the LA riots when I'm in Austin? You know, based on what I see on social media.
Well,
so I think that, like, there's an opportunity for whoever takes it to go out to Israel and actually just talk to people in Israel about what they're feeling.
Well, yeah, no, you're right. You're right about that, Alex, that having the conversation, like you talking to me, I can tell you what's happening in LA. We actually do have the conversations. We're not just looking on social media. We're having conversations with people that have been to Israel. They've been on the ground. They've interviewed people. We see how they, you know, the best, I think, documentary film that came out very recently was The Settlers. Remember that, Craig? We dove into that one, and so we didn't actually get on a plane and go out there, but we saw this journalist from the UK go there and talk to them, like you're saying, like talk to them, talk to the settlers themselves, and hear what their plan is and how they look at the area. And they look down, and it was fascinating because he doesn't have to do any commentary himself. It was so great because I think you're onto something here. Let them tell us. And he did that. And we get this insane reveal from the mouths of the settlers telling us how they think about people.
The Palestinians?
Like,
okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask
that they are less than nothing. That they
All
are.
right,
That they,
wait. Hold on. Okay.
Yeah.
So what were his preconceived views before he went to Israel? Because you never know.
I think he came in the same thing you just said. He said, I want to go and talk to them.
No, but I mean, because also when it comes to making films and documentaries, you could also cut and paste and create a narrative and create a story that you want to tell too.
Look, I've made a ton of documentaries. I'm telling you, this is a discussion you have with any filmmaker. How honest are you being? What integrity do you have? So we know the drill. And
no, I know, but I want to ask. I have a follow up. I got to follow up.
Okay. So look up the settlers.
I will.
I'll watch it. Okay. What I can tell you about that filmmaker is he has gotten, nobody has criticized him for editing it poorly. Nobody's doing that. They're saying they're saying the thing itself is anti-Semitic, but nobody can look to anything that he did deliberately, like misleading. People like to do that. They like to criticize, like, oh, let's find something. They can't really find anything. They're just saying, oh, it's anti-Semitic to let them basically give up the game plan. That's what's going on. He has integrity. He did a great job. You just turn the camera. I can tell because I've done this. I've interviewed people tons of times, try to figure out how to get the story told. And what he does so good is he just turns the camera to them, asks them to talk. He doesn't give any.
Can I say something too, Alex, too, really quickly? Is that I think a lot of us doesn't make a difference, and this is why I kind of agree with Matt over here, because we don't agree with the idea and the concept of Israel, right? Most people don't. Like, this ethnocentric religious group is allowed to have rights to this land. It's just the idea on itself for a lot of people is hard to digest. So, I mean, it doesn't make a difference. you know, what, even if he didn't have any biases going into this whole situation, you're trying to sell an idea in itself that a lot of people just will never accept.
Maybe, yeah. Well, what's the Jewish population like in other Muslim countries? How are Jews treated in these in many of these Islamic countries?
It's not an idea people are willing to accept. You can say the same thing about Africans in Africa. You can say the same thing about the Armenians in Armenia years ago with the Turks. So you can do this with almost every.
No, I'm just saying though. Once
again, your idea that you're trying to sell is not an idea that will be bought, and a lot of people are against it. So even if you didn't have any biases and you went in there and you just you had the people telling you their ideas. If you think their ideas are batshit crazy, then you're not going to accept what they have to say anyways.
I think when it comes to the settlers too, it would be interesting to see how people who don't live in the settlements feel about the settlers, right? Because there's probably a lot of people in Israel there's a lot of people in Israel who are opposed to the settlements too, right? So it's not like a monolith.
From the numbers we've seen, it seems there's about 20%. That's the best I've seen. 20% are against what's happening.
Norm Finkelstein has even said that 20 years ago it was different in Israel. You have more people pushing back against what the state of Israel were doing than there are today. In other words, we have this whole kind of, when you talk about the media, right? So the media has just gone in line with what the programming, the education has been in the United States. It's been empire education. We are taught in school to think that America is fighting for human values and human rights and decency, whatnot. So when the media follows up, right, they say the same thing, then they kind of rubber stamp the narrative. So if you're continuously rubber stamping the narrative, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things where we could talk about this all day, but you know, going out there and then making something in that area is probably it could actually, I think making something in that area could really transform the narrative too. Maybe going out there and making a documentary in Israel with what's happening right now, maybe it avoids World War III. Maybe it tones down some of the Jew hatred that we see online that's obviously being pushed and manufactured, right? Like I said earlier, like you're either
once again, I wouldn't look at the Jew hatred as a bigger concern as the hatred towards Arabs and Muslims and bombing them like crazy. I think there's a bigger problem.
I think that it all carries over to itself though.
So Alex,
no hate on the menu should be accepted.
I don't hate anybody, okay? I like everybody. So
okay, I know you do. That's why I love you.
Yeah.
As far as the filmmaking point of view, again, I'll say The Settlers isn't the only example. You have No Other Land. It won Best Documentary here for in the Academy Awards earlier this year. No Other Land was a collaboration between a Palestinian living from the West Bank. It was the story's about the West Bank. It's not even because it took place before October 7th, and it's an Israeli and a Palestinian filmmaker co-directing it together, winning the award together, going on the stage here in Hollywood at the Chinese Theater, going up on the stage, Dolby Theater, and saying to the world, we need to understand that something wrong is going on here, and Jews and Palestinians should stand up in unison against this. And guess what happened? He was paid a price. He goes back home to the West Bank, and he's attacked by the IDF. He's kidnapped. He's held hostage. He's tortured for over 24 hours. And when he's released, the media do a spin and say it was completely unrelated. And there was people on the ground that saw him throw rocks at IDF soldiers. Yeah, an Academy Award winner goes back to his land. He knows he just made a very controversial film.
The guy who made the Settlers.
No. This is I'm telling you about a second film because this is not just about the Settlers.
What's the second film called? I want to watch it.
Okay, so this film is called No Other Land. It won Best Documentary, and the way Hollywood responded to it, literally giving out an Academy Award to a filmmaker who gets hijacked, held hostage, and tortured within a month of winning that. It was actually 3 weeks later. 3 weeks after winning the award, he gets treated like this, released 24 hours plus later. Hollywood says nothing. Every other film organization around the world that has had a voice said this is not okay to do to filmmakers who are aligning and trying to tell truthful stories. They condemned the action of the IDF. Guess who didn't? Hollywood did not. The Academy that gave him the award did not condemn it. Meanwhile, they're planning a ceremony for Gal Gadot, an ex-IDF member who murdered people in Lebanon in 2006 as an IDF trainer, now getting a star on Hollywood Boulevard. Right after that, Hollywood stayed silent. And they pretended in the media, we read the articles, they pretended in all the publications that it was probably unrelated, and they probably didn't know he was the filmmaker. It was a coincidence. That's what they went on, which is complete bullshit.
I want to watch the documentaries. I wrote that down on my phone. I want to watch it.
Okay.
By the way, what I was trying to say is that if you did go back there, and Alex, I'd love to see you do a documentary, is that when Matt was saying 80-20%, I was saying there's a big change, like the 20 years ago where there was more open-minded people in Israel who were probably upset the way that the Palestinians were getting treated in an open-air prison. That probably has changed, right? Because the media following up with the education. I think that same education exists in Israel, where they've been taught that these people are animals. These people will grow up to rape. And this is just going by the way the defense minister talks, the ex-defense ministry who talks, Smotrich talks, the way that their verbiage is that these people are going to grow up to kill you and rape your daughter, that they need to go. I think there's more of that programming involved now today with the Israelis today. The same way there's more programming of America being the fighters of freedom and peace out there.
Yeah,
really rich men fighting poor man's war in America. So I'd be interested to see that. But I definitely do think that what Matt was talking about, the 80-20%, I think that number has shifted. And it was probably more of a 60-40% at one point, And
So
yes, it would be interesting to go out there and film and ask people if their views have changed over the past 20 years and what has made their views change specifically, and let them talk. I think the best way to learn about what's going on in another area is to just ask basic questions.
Yeah.
And then just let the people talk once you've asked those basic questions, because they'll just tell you everything. Like you'll get way more out of that than you could do all the deep research in the world from your computer. But just let people talk. Let people say what they're going through. Let people tell you their lived experience. Just put it out there and just do it in good faith. It'll work itself out.
In Latin America, the thing that me and Fiorella and Johnny did when we went to a lot of these states is we talked to the Uber riders, the cab drivers, the waiters, the bartenders. We would make it a point to just ask them questions and let them talk. The real people inside you know what I'm saying? Rather than the political entities, it was important to talk to the common folk to see what they got.
You ask, well, so when I give my street interviews once in a while, I will let, and the protest obviously is a little propaganda, but like I do street interviews from time to time and just let people talk. Like back last April when I did this interview where I was asking a bunch of black people how they felt about the economy, and the first thing that they were saying unprompted was that they wanted Trump to come back. I kind of knew Trump was going to win just based off that interview because I just saw what the climate was. And it just, not, and I don't even want to really talk about Donald Trump anymore. I'm just giving it as a point of reference. But here's another reason why I'm not like freaked out about any of this either. And it's because like nothing that any kind of meaningful action when it comes to this type of stuff, right? Like let's look at like immigration, right? Just and I gotta bounce in like a few minutes to work, like 10, 20 minutes. So look, let's look at like immigration, right? Like the majority of job growth that occurred, GDP growth that occurred while Biden was president was from immigration. Those are like the Fed numbers, right? Immigration was the majority of job growth. Right now, the way our fiat Ponzi scheme system is set up is that like we buy cheap goods from other countries, and at low interest in exchange, they take our dollars and they hold on to our dollars in case their currency fails, and they use our dollars to buy U.S. stocks and whatnot, right? If we start mass deporting people like the way Trump has promised, the way that the voters are upset about Trump for not doing, temporarily, you know what happens to GDP growth? It goes down a lot, right? And when that goes down, these other countries are going to say, well, hey, wait a minute, like the American stock holdings that we have, the American dollars that we have, we're not going to get rid of all of them, but maybe we should get rid of like 10% of our U.S. stock holdings or 5% of our U.S. dollars or whatever it is, and start buying gold or start buying Bitcoin or start investing into European markets or start investing into oil or start investing into something else. What happens then to grandma's retirement? And when the majority of the population are boomers living on a fixed income who need their 401k and their stock portfolio to be able to like continue living their lifestyle according to inflation, like their net worth, like the net worth of a whole bunch of boomers could drop 10 to 35, 40% within a 1 year period. If that happens, what do you think is going to happen during the next election cycle? It's a bloodbath for Republicans. Can't do it. What happens to the people on Trump's team who want to move on to something else after Trump is over with? They'll never get jobs. They'll never have relevance. They'll never be able to do anything ever again. So just even with the immigration thing, there's no way Donald Trump could even do what he's promising to do anyway, because the numbers don't add up within our system. When it comes to Iran and everything that's happening in the Middle East, like, another reason why people still use American dollars as the global reserve currency is by and large because of the perceived strength of the U.S. military and the influence of the United States to police and manufacture control abroad. If the United States loses its ability to do something like that, that same scenario also happens, maybe even worse, because we no longer have that type of influence. And then,
are you saying that's the reasons for not to change our imperialistic mindset, because we're already too far down the road and locked and loaded in? Because there's other solutions to get out of it.
No, I'm just telling you what certain obstacles are that people just don't want to talk about.
Okay, but those are obstacles that can be overtaken. I don't want to say overwhelmed.
No, I want to hear about overtaking the obstacles. I'm just talking about like these scenarios of what could these worst case scenarios, right? And so then what can happen then is eventually, like, when like we talked about earlier, when the money runs out and our currency is worthless, which is a 5 to 10 year problem, then you get actual bloody civil war in America. So either way, like, you're still getting an absurd amount of bloodshed, and the goal is to avoid it. But like, how would you, like, if you're,
I can tell you,
how would President Jardula handle this?
Here's the thing. Okay, so the main issue is, well, how do we change our imperialistic mindset, right? Like, people say close the border, I say close the bases, right? So we want to reduce the empire right off the bat, just knock it in half, right?
Okay.
Close half your bases immediately. 1,000 around the world, you now have 500, especially those in Latin America. Then the problem is not the fact that we have cheap labor coming in, is that's what type of labor we have over here. We have to understood that we've outsourced all the decent type of labor jobs out of the country a long time ago, right? But what's an area right away in which we can enrich the people and take care of ourselves, not have our dollar fall? That's all easily done through infrastructure. Because America is old. We have train technology from 1973. Our roads are done. Our whole system is shot. We need to rebuild it. So if we had a real major infrastructure bill come across, right, where we're going to rebuild America the way the Chinese do, where you can get from Shanghai to Beijing in a matter of whatever, or Beijing to Xinjiang in a matter of hours instead of days. If we did that, right, and we were able to do that where people can then have decent jobs through this infrastructure project, right? And then we start getting back to the small farms, right? We have so much land that's so fruitful that we're not tapping into, that I'm not doing that. We're actually importing food from other countries is ridiculous. So if we were just to invest in that right there, we'd have 8 to 10 years of the way of an economy that could be vibrant. People could feed themselves, have a decent job, decent standard of living, that would drive the crime down, that would drive property ownership from the middle class there up. We can have a middle class. If we started doing that, if we started making things again and fixing things again ourselves instead of outsourcing everything, we'd have a lot of jobs. But that would be that would have to mean that we'd have to change our behavior in our government and the behavior in our people, right? You know what I'm saying? We have to start educating people in the right way. Not empire education, not stupid education. We'd have to teach them how the system works. But that's if we really want a middle class. We have those people who are running this place. They don't want a middle class. They want an oligarchy where 1% is controlling the majority of things, because they look at us as useless eaters.
Yeah, I'm not. There's no arguing that.
But that's how President Pasta Jardula would handle it. I just gave you an answer.
No, it's not bad. Okay. How do you manage inflation?
Well, you're not going to have to manage inflation that much, right? If you were able to control your currency. First of all, a lot of the currency and the inflation problems have caused right now that we're dealing with right now was when the, what was it called that Donald Trump signed in the CARES Act? That was the greatest transfer of wealth upstairs. And what did they do? They created a lot of currencies, right? They
just printed
it out of thin air. You have to, that's the number one way you stop inflation, because by doing so, and you're using that money to buy weapons, that's why there's so much, inflation going on right now. So you have to control your currency.
40 new billionaires were created overnight by that.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Not good. It's not good.
Yeah.
What I'm saying though is that if that happens, right, you're going to still, because of the fact that we run all these trade deficits and because the dollar, is sort of propped up.
But that was the first thing I addressed. You stop importing so many things. You start making things and fixing things, growing your own food.
Okay, but do we have, which is good, but do we have do we have enough raw materials? Do we have enough chips? Do we have enough basic materials right now to be able to do that at mass scale?
We are very, very fruitful. We would have to buy some things, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? But if we started making things again, we can start selling things again. I think
that's a great idea. I think that's a phenomenal idea.
I mean, look at our streets. We're using railroad technologies from the 70s, for crying out loud.
President Pasta, I'm voting.
Did I get your vote, Alex?
I like what I'm hearing, but I think that there's obviously more layers to address when it comes to this, right?
Well, the biggest layer is the fact that there's a 1% oligarchy that doesn't care, and they want to control all the wealth and resources, and that's what they want. They think there's too many of us. That's why they're pushing for World War III, because that's an ethnic cleansing of humans, useless eaters that they can take care of right away. And meanwhile, they got bunkers underground built, cities underground built.
Do you feel like they're controlling you, Pasta, right now?
No. I feel like they're punishing us. I feel like they don't want to have conversations like this to get out there. They don't want people to think for themselves. So,
how many people do you think are going to listen to this conversation?
Well, I don't know how many are going to listen to it, but I know we're in a controlled environment where they don't want people listening to it. You got one person here who's been demonetized for almost 7 years now on YouTube, can't make a penny off it. You got another guy down below right there on the bottom of the screen who got his channel yanked. You know what I'm saying? I know you've witnessed censorship. And like I said, you're more talented. You're way more of a smarter thinker. You're way more of an independent voice than a Nick Sorter, but yet he gets lifted and you don't. They want to dumb us down in society, and they want us to be tribal. You come on the show. I told Matt, I said the last time I was on with Alex, I had him on. He had me on one of his Twitter places, and he says out loud, I want to bring on different voices with different opinions. This is my friend Pasta. He's coming in here. They don't want that, Alex. They don't want that at all. They don't want me and you breaking bread at a Texas barbecue in Austin before we rickshaw through the streets, buddy. They don't want that.
No. And by the way, asking about this one conversation, how many people are going to hear it, that the point is they pull our stuff before more people can hear it. They pull it. I'm telling you, we got to look beyond this moment right now when the three of us talking. Earlier in this conversation, we talked about the National Blueprint for Bioterrorism. We got that out. We got that out to 500,000 people. That happened. We got through the cracks. So I'm saying shutting down this conversation, that didn't really matter. No, if you shut people like us down, we can't get stuff out to people where one thing might actually work and get out to more than a handful, get out to more than 100 people. So
what channel? Hold on. What channels?
Go on my Twitter right now. You can go to it's.
I know your Twitter. I have your Twitter. I'm saying what other channels do you use? Twitter sucks. It's more shadow ban than it was pre-Elon. What other channels are you using?
Well, we've had the Rumble channel this entire time. Thank God they haven't pulled that, so that's good. We get
the guys at Rumble. The guys at Rumble are cool. I've talked to some of them. They're
we have other complaints, but not they. Yeah.
What about do you guys have a Telegram group?
No, I'm in your Telegram group.
You're in my Telegram group. Yeah. I started.
You gotta add Matt to that group because I did see Jose Vega's in that group.
Yeah.
So get some homeless left people and stuff.
I want everybody, and I don't give a fuck anymore about the. I don't care about right or left. It's freedom versus tyranny. I do not care, right? Like I'm not tribal to one particular person. I just generally speaking want the person. My view about how I'm governed is I want to vote for whoever leaves me alone the most and the best as possible. Is my view on how I want to be governed.
Yeah.
Well, but what was I saying, dude? Have you heard of Nostr? Let me put this in.
I have heard of it, yes.
Get a Nostr account because nobody can censor you on that. And very few people are in our little group and movement even want to go on there. But it's like public-private key. No one can censor you. No one can shadow ban you. No one can boot your account. Because you control your data and you control how you post on this. Yeah. Well, it stands for notes, relays, and over other stuff. And you'll get Bitcoin. And if people like your stuff, they'll send you small amounts of Bitcoin to incentivize you to keep making better content.
By the way, if you're in the streets of Austin, you want a rickshaw ride around, you can pay with Bitcoin to Alex Strenger when he's there. Let's get his scrawny ass out of here. I've had enough of this guy. I don't want to speak to him anymore. He's got to go. Alex, let everybody know where they can find you, where you can go do things, and make them nice and big, Matty, so he can do his little outro. I love you, brother. You know that.
I love you. No, this is a lot. This is a lot of fun. I enjoy this. We gotta have more of these discussions, bro. Like because
absolutely.
Nobody wants World War III. Nobody wants a digital surveillance state. Nobody wants to see like the tribal bullshit that you see on X, where and it's basically it's like if the state-funded mental hospital had a sewing circle. This is what Twitter is right now, right? Nobody wants to see it. I don't want to sit around making videos and content for people who just live on the internet. And people, I think, generally are getting so tired of all the political stuff, they're just disconnecting and just going outside and not even paying attention to anything. And I think that's kind of where we're headed. So I think that the important thing is to when we're talking about things, you got to make this digestible to everybody, to like the everyday person who just doesn't give a shit about this stuff. And you got to make it so that like the guy who wears a mask alone in his car thinks the earth is flat or whatever, silly euphemism you want to come up with, can understands and can relate to what you're like saying and what you're communicating. In terms of how to get a hold of me, you get a hold of me. So my X account is at the Alex Strenger. YouTube is the Alex Strenger, ALEXSTRENGER. Rumble, Alex Strenger. Instagram, Showtime, Alex Strenger. I got a Telegram group. I'm gonna try to find that. Telegram. What is it? Telegram. T.me/Truthwagon is the Telegram group that I just started. So that's how you can follow me.
I'm in the truth wagon.
You're in the truth wagon.
You got to throw Matty in the truth wagon.
Get in the truth wagon. Just join. Join the truth wagon. Hop in.
I'm in.
Shoot him a link.
I'm in.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Next time I get out to Austin, bro, we got to hook it up again.
I'm excited, bro. I am excited. Am I even being tweeted this right now? Where's the Twitter? I'm trying to retweet the space right now.
Oh yeah,
I put it in. I put it in my Twitter. I was streaming it off my Twitter. I put it in the Truth Wagon. The link for this show, so people can be watching it right now.
Dude, your shit is so shadow banned because I couldn't even. I typed in pasta, it didn't even show up.
Oh yeah.
All right.
I've been censored old school, and I was part of that whole group. That's why I was so mad at the Twitter files.
Yeah.
And Matt Taibbi really going along with this whole, like, they were using it to censor the right. No, they were using it to censor anybody who is anti-establishment. And once again, anybody who promotes independent thinking and can think for themselves. That's who the oligarchs don't want you to hear from. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Strenger, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with us, brother.
Dude, absolutely. So much fun. I had a blast.
I love you, brother.
Love you. All right.
Later.